Hi everyone, my name is Vince Gelman. Thank you for joining me. So one way I like to define the human journey, or really the soul journey through many incarnations, is that it's a journey of discovering truth. One might also say it's a journey of remembering truth, and thus remembering who we are, for we are truth, truth with a capital T. And that journey is incredibly vulnerable. It's vulnerable for so many reasons because truth is in the heart, and that's the only place we're going to find it. And so if we consider that this is a journey of truth through many lifetimes, and that truth is in the heart, then it is a journey through many lifetimes of moving into our heart more and more. So the secret of life, the secret that the truths that we are searching for exist within, which is what all great spiritual teachers teach us, and they exist in our heart. And it's vulnerable because we have to experience a great number of feelings, a great number of often uncomfortable feelings, to open to greater and greater thresholds for truth. One of the ways that I define soul evolution is that we are expanding our thresholds for truth. We are expanding our capacity to take truth to heart. And as we expand our capacity to take truth to heart, we expand our heart. Our heart grows in its capacity to hold more and more truth. But it also expands in its capacity to hold more and more feeling, more complexity, more paradox, more uncertainty, more beauty, and more ugliness. And so as we expand in our heart capacity, we expand our ability to be with the full spectrum of life in its light and its shadows. We are able to hold greater and greater space for the great drama, the great saga that is the human story, the human unfolding. But that takes a great amount of heart work. That takes a great amount of heartbreak, which is heart opening. And so the heart must break open to both beauty and suffering, to both wonder and disappointment, to both truth and the realization that things are not what we thought were true. The heart must break open to wider and wider capacities for uncertainty, greater thresholds for uncertainty, for that space between I no longer know and yet I don't know yet. That place of I don't feel like I am this anymore, and yet who am I now? And the feelings that come with that, the feelings of fear, the feelings of frustration, of anger, that come as we lose our sense of self, as we expand our sense of self. And so the journey towards truth is not for the faint of heart. It's for the courageous of heart. It's for those who have heart for truth. When we think of the mythic tale of the Holy Grail, the quest for the Holy Grail, well, that to me is the Holy Grail is the heart. That's what that story is about. It's a quest for the heart. The Grail, which is a chalice, is the Sacred Heart. It's the heart that overflows with an abundance of love, an abundance of joy, an abundance of creativity. That is a chalice that is never ending, in its generosity, in its prosperity. That is the Holy Grail. But it takes great sacrifice to claim that grail, to win that grail, to open to that grail that the great masters have opened to. It takes great sacrifice to enter the kingdom of heaven, right? If you want to call it that. It takes a great amount of sacrifice to open your heart that wide, that big, to hold that much life. And so a question really is, what are we willing to sacrifice for truth? What are we willing to sacrifice for truth? This is one of the hidden teachings of the great adepts, the great avatars, the great mystics. It's one of the teachings that's often overlooked. We think about what they teach. They teach about love. They teach about, mercy. They teach about compassion. They teach about giving to the poor. They teach about all these things, but what's overlooked is the great sacrifices that they make in order to stand in their truth, in their heart, in their sovereignty. How many great teachers have given up their body for truth? How many great teachers have stood so strong in their heart truth that they were willing to go to prison 39 times like Martin Luther King Jr. and 11 times like Gandhi? How many were killed like both of them? Jesus was killed. Marguerite Porete was killed. Dorothy Stang was killed. These were people who were killed for standing in their truths, following their heart. And so one of the great teachings that's overlooked is not just what they say, but it's the fact that they're willing to give up everything for truth. They're so immersed in truth, and they're so connected to their heart. They're so living from their heart. They're so in touch with their God center that it's impossible for them not to sacrifice everything. Because once you awaken to that level of truth, and once you awaken to that level of love, then really all that's left is service. All that's left is service. One of the fields of consciousness that I work with in my online healing ceremonies, healing and activation ceremonies, is the Holy Order of Kings. So I work with the Holy Order of Kings. And I said to them one time, I said, what does it take to be a member of the Holy Order of Kings? And one word came back, and that was sacrifice. And so great souls make great sacrifices. And so the journey is one of the quest for truth, the quest for the grail of the heart. The Holy Grail is the Holy Heart. And what is it that we must sacrifice? And so this goes back to what I said earlier, which is we must sacrifice feeling comfortable. We must sacrifice what we think is true. We must sacrifice familiarities. We must sacrifice relationships, jobs sometimes. We have to walk away often from a great deal to live like the great souls of times past and of times today, who have walked on the periphery of society, who have walked in the margins of society. They've sacrificed a great deal. They don't fit in, but they surely belong, because they belong to their heart and to spirit. And so what is it? It's a question to think about, is what what are you willing to sacrifice for truth? Which really means, what are you willing to sacrifice for the heart? What are you willing to sacrifice to increase your thresholds for truth, for uncertainty, for feeling, for knowing the God self that you are, for remembering yourself as love, for embodying that love? You see, what's happening in the world right now is that we are awakening to truth very quickly. It's a time of great reckoning. And to oversimplify things, there are two ways that we are awakening to truth. One is through our own inner revelation, through our meditation, through our healing paths. Maybe we're working with sacred plant medicine and we have these divine revelations through that work. Or maybe we're working with an ascended master like Mary Magdalene, and we're having profound revelations working with Mary. But the other way that we are awakening to truth is by recognizing all that has been false in the world. We're recognizing the dark truths. The dark truths are becoming more pronounced. We're realizing that things have not been what we thought. Our government does not have our best interest at heart. The government is deeply corrupted. We're recognizing the extent of the deep state. We are recognizing the extent of Satanism on this planet. We are recognizing the extent to which the dark forces have infiltrated banking and education and entertainment and all sorts of different institutions. So we're seeing dark truths everywhere, but in recognizing those dark truths and seeing that things aren't what they seem, that is making us question more. That is making us go, well, if that's not true, what is true? And that's turning us inwards. It's turning us to our hearts, and it's turning us also to heartbreak, where we feel, for many people, we're feeling actually shocked and devastated and angry and sad because things are not what we thought were real. And we've been lied to, and we've been abused, and our children have been abused. And in that heartbreak and in that questioning, the heart opens to a higher truth. We are suddenly available to something different. But there's a sacrifice. The sacrifice is we must feel uncomfortable. There's a sacrifice, and that is we must traverse that abyss of uncertainty. Well, what now? What is true now? If that's not true, what is true? Who am I now in relation to this world that I realize is a shadow? So we have to make sacrifices, when people are losing their jobs or they're walking away from jobs. I can't participate in this corrupt scheme. I'm willing to walk away from my job as a nurse. I'm willing to walk away from my job as a journalist. I'm willing to walk away from my job as a law enforcement agent because I'm not willing to participate in that corrupted, rotten game. But now what? So there's a sacrifice there. Now what? Who am I now? What now? I feel uncomfortable. I feel scared. How am I going to feed my kids? But you see, now there's space. And in that space, truth can begin to arise. A higher truth, a deeper truth, a more profound truth. A truth that expands our threshold for truth and therefore accelerates our soul evolution. Again, one way to understand our evolution as a soul is that we're here to expand our thresholds for truth more and more and more. And so what we thought was true is no longer true, and now we're ready for higher truth. And then we live that truth, and then we realize that's not true because there's a higher truth beyond that. But with that expansion of truth comes an expansion of feeling. I need to increase my capacity to feel. Because if I go from here to here, I'm going to feel uncomfortable. And can I be with that feeling? Can I feel the feelings that come as I move from one threshold of truth to another? Can I feel the fear as I let go of one level of knowing and enter another? Can I be with the uncertainty? Because I have to expand my threshold for uncertainty as well. So feeling, truth, uncertainty, I'm expanding those thresholds, and I'm expanding my sense of self. I'm evolving as a soul to higher and higher thresholds of realization, of embodied realization. And so this is again not for the faint of heart. This is for those who are committed to living from their heart and expanding their heart. And the more we expand our heart, the more we can hold in our heart. The more we can hold, as I said, we can hold a wider spectrum of dark and light. We can hold a wider spectrum of dark and light, and we have more capacity to serve the unfolding of the human story as it moves towards truth more fully. And so I return to that question for you, the question often overlooked that we don't think about from our great teachers, our great adepts, past and present, that they did show us, but we don't think about it often, and that is, what are we willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to sacrifice for truth? What are you willing to sacrifice for truth? And so I'll leave it there. I have more ceremonies coming up. This weekend it's with the Golden Ray, online healing and activation ceremony with the Golden Ray. I think it's 3 p.m. Pacific on Saturday the 18th, 3 p.m. Pacific on Saturday the 18th, 75 minutes, 77 Canadian. I'll put a link in the description. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. And thank you as always. Blessings.